right that these are issues we should all be thinking about as we shape the future together. So next we have a talk more on the economic side of things by Jack Strocci, who is he has been an economist working at one point with the Australian government. It's been rumored he's responsible for the dramatic economic success.
I take full credit.
And he's going to talk about some of the economic aspects of these radical technological advancements.
Thanks, Ben, and thanks, Jane, also for the brilliant presentation. My thesis I'm going to put forward today is kind of a dramatic one. The technological singularity that James and Ben working on and talked about is going to result in what I call the end of economics. You might have heard of a lot of books recently coming out, the end of art, the end of science. Well, my argument is that this will apply to our economic, not just economic theory, of course, but to our economic practice, and that flows to what James was saying about the end of the work. It means that humans, as James was saying, will no longer be defined as having to work to make a living. Now, I'll start with a thanks. That makes sense. I'll start with, well, my subtitle is How Karl Marx Might Have Had the Last Laugh, because a lot of the things that he talked about in his works, I'm not necessarily a Marxist or a communist, but he certainly did prophesy a lot of where we're heading, in particular the dominance of technology in driving the economic system, and also the rise of the oligarchies, which I'm sure we're all aware of, and possibly the end of work, which he famously talked about. So we should give Marx at least one cheer. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry, your accent is really thick. Could you try to enunciate? It's really hard to understand you. I apologize.
Well, that's not English, that's Australian. It's a different language.
Right, I'll try and talk with a more American accent. Suit your ears.
I think British will do just as well.
All right, well, I'll get all topic. I'll just begin with a paradox that economic models assume an economy. That's an axiom, which I think we can all agree. A prediction, the technological singularity will cause the end of economics as economics laws break down. Now, I'm sure we've all heard of the cosmological singularity that scientists talk about, which is like the beginning of the Big Bang, basically. Physical laws don't work there, and so we don't know really what's going on, which is why the Big Bang is actually considered part of metaphysics in a way. It's not, we just don't really know. We speculate about it, but it's beyond our event horizon. And similarly, post the technological singularity, when AI transcends human intelligence by a number of factors, we just don't know. So we can speculate, we've got nothing around it. So obviously I'm going to try and just come back a little bit just to the pre-tech singularity period, when we can at least extrapolate on existing events. As I said, Marx insisted technology drive the economic system. After the revolution, no blueprints, he said. And I think that's a sound argument. We just don't know. But we do want to be aware that we're kind of facing a kind of almost anarchic situation. And just brace yourselves for the accident. So prediction is hard, especially for the future, as Yogi Berra used to say. Now, I just want to quickly talk about the bigger picture. The end of economics really portends the speciation event. It will change our economic embodiment. That's our tools, our institutions, and our instrumentation, obviously, our corporate structures and our machinery. But it could also work downstream, change our genotype, our ethnic endowment, and upstream, changing our ecological environment. So it's like it's a major change in, if you like, in world historical development. And remember, speciation events, right, we know from the study of ecological history, can have grim timings. We can have the extinction of unfit species, and we might be that species. Because 98% of all species, or 99% of all species, are extinct, and we're a species. And it can also cause the stratification of what Darwin called less favoured races. I don't want to get into racial analysis, but just be aware that capacities of different races change across the distribution of the bell curve, and that can create real political headaches, as we're all aware of. Another point, which is more individual, is that our identity is based on our professional status. You eliminate that status, you change, you maybe even destroy your identity, you create an identity crisis. That's my accent, okay? That's not too good. Slower? Slower, a little bit, okay. We saw that in the Great Depression, right, and also in the Industrial Revolution. Massive changes in economics, massive changes in economic structure, and created political chaos. And that's the thing we really want to be aware of. So I want to start from like a first premise, if you like, that all the technological ducks are lined up for a perfect storm. And that means that when they're all lined up, as I say here, anything that you can do, bytes can do better, quote the old song. So it's going to go from bits to bits all the way through. That is my prediction or projection. Hardware, we have Moore's law, obviously, clocking away. We're not sure exactly when we'll get the human brain equivalents in computational power, but most projections are next 20 years. So it's not long, right? Less than the time since the beginning of the internet. Amazing. Well, okay, Hugo says it's now. There's legitimate debate.
2016?
Okay, well, we'll go into it. Okay. That's the hardware side. But the software side, we have a number of algorithms, and I'm not a computer scientist, so I'm just being told by this that we have things like Hutter's algorithm, which I won't go into, which apparently is an all-purpose software AI formula that can just grind through any problem if you've got sufficient computational resources. That's out there. We have Shor's algorithm for quantum computers. We have all these, nerds, but hiding away and working on these super algorithms that will fit in with the new software, the hardware. And we have network, we have cloud computing, high-speed cloud computing everywhere. So the whole thing will be linked up in a big network. And as James says, going at the speed of light or nearly. So that's like a global mind. You've all heard the story before, but now we see it. It's no longer a speculation. Yes? Audition. And the final one that I want to talk about is peripherals, which we normally think of in terms of printers and screens, kind of boring things, but the peripherals are now starting to take off. What I would call Android robots. We've all seen pictures of the James's machines, tapping away on their ping pong balls. But 3D printers are really the killer app of the industrial and the manufacturing age. And we're at the Commodore Atari stage. So once we hit that, it's all over, red over for most manufacturing. Sorry about that. Now I want to talk quickly about Moore's law, about the speed of Moore's law, which again, people keep saying, well, where is the singularity? Come on, give us some evidence of why. Why aren't we? Where's my air car? Is the common complaint. Why aren't I wearing spandex? Where is the singularity? The problem is that Moore's law doubles computer power every couple of years. So the last 3 cycles of Moore's law, up to human brain equivalence, right? From 6 years out, we'll get 12.5%. From 4 years out, it'll be 25%. From 2 years out, it'll be 50%. And at 0 hour, it'll be 100%. So we'll go from 12.5 of human brain to 100%. This is just a schematic idea. In 6 years now, the exact timing and spacing is not critical, but the point I'm trying to make is we'll go from very low to equivalent in a short time. And we won't be ready for it. 6 years is nothing. Right? So, just to refer to the, actually, no, I'll go ahead slightly. Where are we? No, not there. Screen's not there. The singularity term, as we know, comes from cosmology. Now, in cosmology, I believe it's called the omega term. I'll be ready to criticised if that's wrong, which dictates whether the universe will expand or accelerate or decelerate or stay fixed. The value of the omega term determines that. Now, in economics, I think some economists have sort of stumbled on or worked out that there is a similar omega term, and it's the elasticity of demand for computational resources. I don't want to throw too much jargon at you, but I'll quote Professor Quigley, who's a much better economist than I'll ever be, who has talked about and he largely agrees with the concept of singularity, and he's a very established economist. He doesn't wear spandex or change his name to numbers or anything like that. He said one way of expressing this is in terms of the aggregate elasticity of demand for computation. I'll quote it because it's worth doing. If it's greater than 1, right, then the share of computing economy expressed in value terms rises steadily as computing gets cheaper. Digital technologies will displace analog for a steadily growing proportion of productive activity in both the economy and the household sector, as has already happened in communications and media, as we all know. Once that transition is made, these sectors share the rapid growth of the computer sector. The greater rate of growth for a steadily expanding proportion of the economy accelerates at the pace dictated by Moore's law. A generalised Moore's law might not produce Kurzweil's singularity, but a few years of growth at 70% a year would make most current calculations, economic calculations, irrelevant. Irrelevant. That is the end of economics. Right? And that's not far away. Right? It will take 6 years, if my model is correct, Hugo may criticise it, from 12.5 to 100. So it's not long, we won't have much time. Now, I particularly want to just get to the basis of when I say the end of economics, I also mean the end of economic theory, which started, as you're all aware, with Adam Smith, who talked about the division of labour. I mean, has anyone heard of Adam Smith here? Yeah. Okay, a few people. A Scottish man, naturally, who founded the discipline of economics, and who premised his book on the own work, the division of labour, cooperating workers and tool owners and tool users working to make stuff and make it more efficiently. Now, before I talked about the 4 things that will create a perfect storm, once they all come together, they will create what Larry Summers, who's the chief economist of the United States of America, recently talked about, called the universal doer. The doer, meaning just gets things done. And that universal doer will have a virtually infinite capacity to produce goods and provide services. This is Larry Summers and John Quigley. These guys are not fruitcakes. Right? They're the top men in the Australian government and the American government, and they're taking it seriously. And I could also talk about, who's heard of Paul Krugman, who writes the New York Times? Paul Krugman? Okay, Paul Krugman. He won the Nobel Prize a couple of years ago. He's also talking about it. So this is no longer the realm of science fiction. And it is kind of surprising, I find, that economists, there is a lot of stuff going on in economics just this year, but people are not prepared. That's microeconomics. So we're going to go from the realm of scarcity, which is the fundamental assumption of economics, to what I call the realm of abundancy, when basically anything that needs to be produced or provided by tool making, services, or systems, will be essentially a free good. Right? Will essentially be like the air. I mean, it's not surprising, we all know, if you're not like me, sometimes we pirate a lot of stuff, media from the air. How much does it cost? Nothing. It's from the ether. Well, effectively, that digital process that we use to provide our media, which is free, will convert the entire analog economy, and we'll get the same concept. I know it sounds freakish, but you see those little robots that James is on James's videos. Once they get started making things or providing services, there's no stopping them, and they keep doubling every year, and the software keeps getting smarter. So from scarcity to abundancy. Now, on the macro, as you know, the economic theory is divided into micro and macro. And on the macroeconomic side, I realised recently, this is my little brainstorm, that we're going to go from, has anyone heard of Keynes? John Maynard Keynes here? Hands up, okay. John Maynard Keynes, just as Adam Smith founded microeconomics, or the basic economics of the firm. John Maynard Keynes founded macroeconomics, that's the economics of the whole nation, the big picture. And he conceived the concept of an income expenditure circular flow. Right? Well, my argument is at the end of economics, that circular flow will dry up. Right? The closed circle of interacting economic agents will be replaced by standalone people dipping into the common pool, if you like, of goods, which will just be there for free. Just like we have free Wi-Fi where you go anywhere now. But we'll have free stuff, you know. We'll have free computers, you'll have free cars, maybe. I don't know, anything that you like, it will be effectively free. This stuff will be free. You go into big hardware stores now, and so many of the goods there are so cheap. Right? And we're only, as I said, at 2% or 5% rate now. When we get to 100% of the singularity, when we get to 100% of the singularity, that stuff's going to be approaching zero. But when it approaches zero, right, an economy producing nominal values will morph into what I call a commons, right? As a common good, you know, like a part almost, which where all that stuff that's fabricated or provided will be distributed as free. When that happens, the economy, the nominal economy, the money economy, will fall beneath the event horizon, or beyond the event horizon. There will be a roller coaster. This is my prediction, and you know, it's not worth. If you want to put money on it, go for it. But, I'm not a great economic projector, but my projection is based on what's happened before with the dot-com economy. There'll be a massive, roller coaster ride, a massive spike, followed by what I think will be a double-barreled crash. There'll be a huge spurt of economic growth as we go from 12.5 to 25 to 50 to 100. Right? Remember that last 3 cycles of Moore's Law? And so we'll get this massive increase. Everyone will be rich. This is great, free stuff. It'll be like everyone will have won the lotto. Right? And we'll all feel really rich for a short period of time. But a couple of things will happen. First one is obvious, there's a glut of goods and services will depress the price level. Right? So suddenly all the prices will fall. Right? And you know, people who are earning money will feel rich, but that's the second problem, is the depressed prices of outputs will naturally, inevitably, be imputed back to depress the incomes of factory inputs. That's you guys and me. Factory inputs are people who own tools or operate tools. Right? Owners and operators of tools. We won't be able to earn income. Therefore, we will not be able to spend income. The income expenditure flow. It's a flow. Once you cut one thing out of it, the flow stops. The river doesn't flow anymore. The cycle is opened up. It's no longer closed. Right. So I base that projection not on any sophisticated economic model or mathematics, which is beyond my pay grade, but essentially by looking at what happened in the dot-com bubble, which I think we may all remember from about 15 years ago, 1998. Remember how everyone sits in your economy and we'll all be, you know, the whole technology will take over, which is kind of, there was some point to it, but it'll make everyone super rich, or anyone who has technology super rich. So everyone did make a lot of money and it was great. Alan Greenspan said irrational expectations, but it turned out a lot of people did make a lot of money, but then the thing crashed, right? Because suddenly people started to use this term that I never heard before, business model. What is the business model of the dot-com? And we all know there is no business model because there's no business. You can't get people to pay for digital products, right? No business model, no business. And there's Warren Buffett, he joked, but it was a good joke. He said the internet has wound up destroying more capital value than Karl Marx. And if you don't think that's true, ask the owners of EMI and other companies like that, right? Whose shares are probably worthless now. It used to be, pretty big wheel. Now, this is going to have profound effects on a number of different, you might say, holy cows of liberalism, which is a philosophy that most people in the West espouse to one form or another. One of the fundamental principles of liberalism is you want to get ahead, you've got to educate, you've got to study hard at school. Chinese people, I'm sure, know that. Their mothers stand over them flogging them to make sure they pass their exams, and that's a good thing. They've been doing that for 3,000 years, pass their civil service exams. But one of the kind of tragic things that's coming is that higher education, basic education is critically important, learning how to just walk around and do the basics, right? But higher education, the return on investment on that will decline as the cost of it increases, as the more and more sophisticated forms of teaching are used, but the revenues generated for it are no longer coming in. The middle class people who used to expect to get quite a good income once they left college, it's no longer there. Outsourcing is happening, downsizing is happening, offshoring is happening, but most of all, robots are happening. Right? And these robots are obviously, as James has said, they're going from what I call the manual world, the world of trucks and front-end loaders, to the mental world, the world of spreadsheets and offices, office jobs, and basic professional services. And you can see that big gap there, that's a loss, right? That's cost, negative. So there's some argument about this, but the trend is pretty clear. So I call this labour at its wit's end, right? That's labour, that's all of us, right? Labouring, or tools and men, as James has showed before, will work together, and generally as tools improve, right, and did more manual labour-saving stuff, humans could also improve. They were released from the burden of labour, backbreaking labour. And what did they do? They did that education thing. They went and studied more. And they learned to build better tools, right? And then they had to learn to operate those tools. So we have what I call labour and tools, or technology, were complementary. That is, one improved the other. There was a positive relationship between the two. That's complementary. But now, in the digital age of smart machines, right, the machines we had in the analog age of the Industrial Revolution were tend to be dumb machines. They're very strong, like hydraulics, steam engines, but not necessarily with great mental processing power. Now smart machines are coming in and they're muscling in on our evolutionary niche. Remember, this is evolution we're talking about, people. They're muscling in on our niche, and that's our strong suit. What do we call Homo sapiens? Thinking person, right? But if some other thing comes along that can outthink us, like, where's the next level? Right? That's it. That's all we've got, right? Well, that's our main thing. So clearly, we go from labour will be a complement to machines to a competitor. And there's one problem when we're competing with these machines, right? You can see that they've got all the aces in their hand, right? They've got this incredible Moore's law, the peripherals, the netware, the software, the hardware. It's all improving, and we're staying the same. We're not getting any better. We're just treading water, really. We can educate ourselves, but the cost of education is going up, the benefits going down. I hate to sound too gloomy, but economics is called a dismal science, and the news is bad. I've seen the future, and in many ways the news is bad for most of us. And a lot of the jobs, most of the jobs that this, the next phase of the digital revolution will take will be middle class jobs. It'll be jobs for people like you and me. Not that lower class people shouldn't deserve our sympathy either, but I'm saying it's the middle class, and this is a very important thing. The middle class is the basis of democracy, not the upper class or the lower class, the middle class. That's the people who think and do the right thing and follow the laws and all that boring stuff. You kill the middle class prospects for progress, you enter into really serious dangerous territory. And we all know what happened in the 30s when that happened. Now we see here a graph that shows dropout and participation rate. Notice it's worse for men. Right? Women, I think, have probably maybe better career prospects in the digital age, at least the early phase of it. Everyone can get wiped out eventually, but women, maybe they work better in little teams and they're more sympathetic or something. I could say something sexist here, probably shouldn't, but whatever. But men, they're used to operating big heavy machinery. I operate with heavy machines, I love it. Once a machine operates the machine, they do this. They drop out, right? This is, as I said, this is no longer, now a lot of people say, well, that's the Great Recession, right? That's true, some of that is the Great Recession, but it's having disparate effects, right? And a lot of college graduates can't get jobs either. So there's something happening that, unfortunately, the reality of the job market, how it's working, is being masked by the secular trend, which is what the end of economics is about. It's a secular trend, is being masked by the secular fluctuations. So that means there's noise in the data. So people can say, well, that's just a recession, and once the recession stops, we'll get back to this again or something like that. We'll go up again. But my argument is it's going to stay that way. It'll get worse, actually. Capital-based technological change. I hate to throw all these terminologies with you, but as we've seen, when the labour force loses both participation rate, less people working, and those people earning less money, because we saw with the college graph that the income returning to college and education is not improving all that much. What happens? Logically, if you've got less people working and those people earning less money, value times quantity, you get a lower overall share of labour in GDP compensation, and that's exactly what's happening. Now that's been happening for a while, right? It's been happening for a while, but you can see this started in 2000, well before the recession. This is the United States, which is worse, but labour's share of compensation is going down, which indicates that the returns to capital, particularly high-tech capital, are in some sense obviously vastly outpacing. How that's exactly happening and working out is a subject of controversy in economics, but it's happening, we know that, and we think, not implausibly, when you look around you, that these technology billionaires around there, someone's making all the money that's not going to labour, and it's likely going to be people who are owning machines or controlling machines or doing business with machines, high-tech machines, digital machines. And there we see manufacturing employment in secular decline. That's manufacturing. It's the same graph as James. James is one better than mine. We can see here industrial robots supplied in 2009, 60,000. Manufacturing jobs lost 1 million, 1.5 million. So we've got Japan has the highest robot densities. Right? So it's just some facts for you here. It looks like Asia overall has the highest population of robots. So the future, obviously Asian countries are getting ahead of European countries in implementing robots. And in some ways I think this is I won't be long.
Yeah, you've got to wrap up soon.
Okay, a couple more.
Sure.
This is the most important at the end. A couple of more things. This is critical. There's something about the Asian economic system which seems to manage to change to high-tech better. So this is a good sign, particularly for China. The bad side is we've got what I would call the recrudescence of feudal landlords. If everything that can be produced or provided is going to be for free, the only things that are going to be of scarcity value are raw materials, right? And that means the rob barons. And we've seen that already in Australia with mining magnates and
What happens once strong nanotech comes into play?
Don't know. Okay, don't know. A couple of more slides over here. Any primary, so the landlords will be the only ones with a class of real purchasing power. But their only customers will be other landlords. So that's going to be a problem. It's going to be a very kind of tightly knit, insulated economy. Everyone else will be reduced to the status of courtiers or supplicants. Those are medieval terms. We're going back to a structure of an economic system that will be medieval. But that's, when you think about it, that's not so far off the truth. The next thing is that capitalists will want to have something to do. Their landlords are just going to be the ones running the economy. And capitalists are already doing that. They're into something that economists call rent seeking, both in Wall Street, investment bankers, and in K Street, where all the crony capitalists are, the lobbyists, the ones who get the government contracts. They are into distributing rather than producing the economic pie. They're into cutting it up rather than baking it. Right? The takeaway lesson from Economics 101, a monopolistic price maker is better than a competitive price taker. MBAs study ways to beat the market, not to join it. That's where the future's going for the capitalist enterprise. They're going into monopoly and rent seeking. We can see that already. Bill Gates and Carlos Slim, the two world's two richest men, are rich by virtue of monopoly. And they're also into technology, obviously. Google, Apple, Facebook are desperately trying to corner their markets and capture their markets, right? They want us to seek that rent that comes from a stable market. And the Russian oligarchs, we've already seen, the world heavyweight champions of rent seeking, heisted half the economy and certainly extracted their pound of flesh. Nearly a last couple. The People's Republic of China's political economy, everyone has a share. I thought this would be a good moment to make some admiring remarks about the Chinese Communist government. Okay, particularly if there are any police here. The end of economics will refocus the resource rivalry from efficiency in economic production to equity in political distribution. Now, the state-owned enterprises that dominate the Chinese economy in some ways are well suited to cope with the social stresses of the end of economics. They are part capitalist and part statist. That is to say, there's private sector ownership in it, but the government owns the majority, right? So there's reward attraction from the capitalist side, so people still keep inventing and trying to improve things, but there's risk aversion on the statist side. That means that there's a floor, right? So that if things get too bad, the government can step in and maybe help people out, like an insurance company. That's a little bit idealistic, but it can happen, right? And I would suggest People's Republic is in a position to write a new Magna Carta for the post-economic age, putting the feudal barons in their place and giving the sovereign people its rightful due. It's not entirely a joke when I say that. I think that the Western governments are seriously frightened of their oligarchs. They almost defeated the last Prime Minister of Australia, Gina Rinehart and people like that, who are the richest woman in the world, practically unseated the Prime Minister. That's what we're facing in the West. In the East, you're in a better position. Nearly the final one. Now, we talked about the end of economics, right? And machines have the advantage in manual and mental operations. Non-machines have the advantage in material and Mother Nature. But there is one advantage, right, that non-machines, particularly humans, have, and that's morality. The moral economy is our final sanctuary. There's only one thing a robot can't do, the human still can do. That's have feelings and have moral senses. Subjective consciousness can't be mimicked by a Turing machine. Economics can't completely morph into ethics. Unfortunately, the economy of love, the pay rate is lousy. Just ask your mother. Thank you.
All right, well, this,
any questions? Sorry to go over time.
We can have just a couple of quick questions, or we'll run behind schedule. Is anyone besides you going?
Hi, how are you?
So after the economics of free, Chris Anderson spoke about the economics of free.
Yeah.
And exactly that, as it gets closer to the bottom and really hits it, basically we'll all be getting free stuff, right?
Free stuff that, not material, like land and mineral resources.
No, but like couches and...
Anything that has to be produced or provided with the use of tools, produced goods and provided services will be, according to the end of economics, if it follows this projection, will be effectively free, as are media, audio-visual media are free now. That principle will apply to everything. But there still will be a cost based on the materials cost.
But one could argue, though, that then preparing for the environmental future could be an option, because if we have all this stuff around, we have to figure out how to get rid of this stuff. And that could create a whole new industry in the getting rid of the free stuff that machines are there for making. People could go more into, working into the ecological fields, and therefore it could create a different kind of the economy based on different types of labor that machines cannot make.
I need to introduce the next speaker, so I shouldn't be the one who goes out there to deal with the pizza. There's money.
The resource cost will put a baseline minimum cost for every good, depending on its raw materials ratio. So stuff that's got a heavy raw material, like land is all raw materials, so that'll be expensive. That's going to be a problem. That's the first point, right? So not everything won't be free, it's just our value added side will be free. As far as the ecology is concerned, I think that's a critical issue, but I think I mentioned in the beginning, our ecological environment will be transformed by this, and maybe we will use the power of the end of economics to deal with our ecological problems, because they affect all of us, and so we all go down the same road. Anyone else?
No, we haven't got any time. Sorry.
Oh, we go just answer one question. Go.
What percentage would you say amongst economic theorists are concerned with these issues?
Krugman, Wiggin, Larry Summers.
Say like 10%?
That doesn't matter. That's 90% of the brain power, even though I'll be 0.9% of the computers. Those three of the top economists, right off the top of my head, who are the best in the world.
Would you say it's like mainstream?
It is mainstream once they start. Yes. But it's mainstream amongst the smart guys.
I think we can get a little ahead. All right, well,
We have a panel discussion.
Thank you.
Thanks for fascinating talk. And I think the idea that the Asian economic models, not only in China, but say Korea and Singapore, which while democratic also have a stronger state and corporate development than in the US, for example. The idea that this sort of state/government hybrid corporate framework may be better for navigating the path to the singularity it's an interesting one, certainly deserving of further attention. So, as a slight change in direction from these prognostications of human irrelevance and obsolescence, we have now Amy Lee who will give a more positively oriented talk on the future of understanding human emotion. Rather than robotics and control theory or economics background, Amy comes from more of a design background as well as business and marketing. So she's more of an expert on how to use technology to appeal to human emotion. And in one of Jack's last slides, he posited that emotion and morality and feeling are one of the last barriers for machines to break as they gradually encroach on human capabilities. So this would be the theme of Amy's talk. And Amy has done a lot of fantastic practical work in designing mobile apps and other online experiences to appeal to human emotions using advanced technology. And she'll now be telling us about the future of this system.
Thank you.